carbon footprint, but also to reduce, water. How do we help them or encourage them to, hold storm water, through rain barrels, rain gardens, things like that, to, to kind of minimize that impact. So making sure that we are all doing our part. So that's kind of where we are with those KPIs. This is the first time we're kind of sharing those broadly to get feedback. So if y'all have thoughts on those today or in the future, I'd love to get your feedback on those.
I love it. Thanks, Tracy.
Great. Thanks, Katie. I appreciate that immediate feedback, instant gratification. Thank you. Awesome. So another thing that we've, this whole priority stat program is really, I said this from the beginning, it's about, working together collaboratively, making sure that we're all, know what the same goals that we're working towards and doing it together. And so as this has evolved, we've really kind of been able to identify what we're loosely calling kind of like super measures. And these things are kind of like shared measures. And we're going to see a little bit of that today. So just as an example, kind of under KPI 1, kind of a higher super measure, if you will, is potentially eliminate the need for water rescues from vehicles due to flash flood events, right? So obviously fire are the ones that are performing these water rescues. So, kind of they're tracking this information. So awesomely are now, which is fantastic. So, they're kind of looking at the who, where, why, and this is going to help us identify, the right interventions, right? So who do we need to target, and kind of what's the messaging around that? But also thinking about, even if we don't have water rescues, we still need to be prepared for that. So making sure that you all are prepared to have your people trained, that you've got the right equipment, that equipment is getting replaced as it needs to be and updated as it needs to be. So that's kind of, so you all have some measures and goals around that kind of, bubble up to this, eliminating the need for water rescues. And today we've got TNT as well. They obviously have a role to play too. So, installing traffic control interventions, right? So we're going through a process now with grants of identifying areas that are priorities for having certain interventions. Obviously TNT to identify what's the right intervention for a particular scenario. So looking at the volume of traffic, speed of traffic, and other things like that, that kind of, so help us to identify what's the right thing to put into place. And then also, I think you guys might be touching on this morning as well, but how do you guys implement emergency timing for traffic signals to make sure that we're not making things worse, right? By having signals that are preventing people from moving well throughout the city. So those are all things we're evolving, we're learning. And so I really appreciate everybody's kind of work to help us get to this point, and we'll just keep continuing to grow. So any thoughts or questions about kind of all of that and where we're headed?
I like the key performance indicators.
You like the change?
They're all great overarching goals, life, save lives, protect property, be resilient, engage our citizens. So those are all terrific things. The difficulty is trying to boil that down to more specific things that we do in our everyday workaday world to impact those overreaching goals. And I know that's what all this is about. But, finding those right things to measure and track to impact those larger things sometimes can be a little bit of a mystery, right? But anyway, that's the journey we're on.
It is the journey. We're getting closer every meeting, every day with, sometimes you think you have the right measure, of course, too. And then, even with how many water rescues are we doing? A couple of years ago, that wasn't a question that we could easily answer.
Yeah.
Not because the effort wasn't there. It was just, kind of being able to really kind of clean up how that stuff is being entered into the system, right? So everyone thought they were entering the right thing.
Right.
But when it comes down to, Jill having to go and look and try to figure out what happened, there's everyone's putting this in differently. And so trying to get everybody on the same page. So really I think that's been like a huge accomplishment, and just having some really good data about the water rescues that fire is actually having to do. So
over time, well, I'm interested to hear hopefully how few rescues we're having. But over time, we look to put you out of business.
Yeah.
By putting projects in place where rescues were once needed. I think about the intersection of King and Union Street, and over the years, I've seen many abandoned cars there. When we finally get the pump station drainage project completed on that intersection, it's gonna, it'll get wet when it downpours, but it's gonna be able to pump on it, the water out. We won't need rescues there anymore, right? So that's looking for those opportunities in sync with the stormwater side of things is a positive thing.
absolutely.
Put you out of business. Well, we gotta be ready. All right.
That's what they're hoping for, right? So with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the fire team. I've asked, I'm going to stop my share, and you guys can at least share to the folks that are virtual, as well as that might be watching via YouTube. I've asked the guys from IT to come down and try to get us on the screens in here as well. So hopefully we'll get that. There we go.
Thank you, Tracy. Again, I'm Carl.
Here, Mayor.
Fire Department, the Chief of Planning. Fire Department, and she's doing a real good job of getting our data, both in these positions, but here at the department for 18 years. So I have a lot of experience with flooding and the rescue. So we're going to talk about our history, kind of how we got to where we are. Sea level rise project identified flooding and sea level rise issues within the city, and kind of how to best combat those. So, and looking at those were long range plans. And so kind of needed something that what we're going to do now, how we're going to get this solved now. So some of the solutions that we came up with are obtaining 4 high water vehicles. We got personal protective equipment, further mechanical equipment, and specialized training for our members for these flood events. So our high water vehicles, we have 4 high water vehicles now. 2 of those are international, 2 of those are Bay, those are brands. So the advantage of those is the chassis sits higher up off the ground. So if you have the flooded waters, it obviously won't get into the components of the vehicle as much as it would our engines or our ladder trucks. They sit a lot lower to the ground. And if you look, you can see how high they sit there. Our engines are so much lower that every time they have to go through flood waters, we have to do maintenance on it. And roughly each engine or ladder that goes through, we've spent about $127 just changing the fluids in the rear ends of differentials. So it can add up over time depending on how many we have. So all of our CFP swarm personnel are required to complete swift water training. There's 3 different levels to this. There's an awareness, Swiftwater 1, and a Swiftwater 2. The awareness level was designed for responders to recognize and support Swiftwater incident, but it does not provide any training to conduct or manage a Swiftwater incident. So everyone in our department is trained at this level. We get floodwaters. They're trained to go in, what they have to do, what they're able to do to get something. The Swiftwater rescue team members, they're qualified at the technician level. So the technician level was designed to provide the knowledge and skills needed to conduct an offensive rescue operation involving floods and swift moving water. So they have a higher training. You have to send them off to get trained. So there's a pretty good cost associated with that. And we have Swiftwater 1, which teaches the hazards associated with swiftwater, self-rescue techniques, preparation and planning, use of rescue equipment, knots, anchoring systems, dealing with foot entrapments, diagonal tension systems, and the understanding and use of the rescue vest. So each component contains a little bit more as you step up in the requirements. Swiftwater 2 teaches more advanced shore-based rescue operations, large-scale urban flood operations, search and recovery operations, night ops, boat-based rope systems, bridge rescue applications, and boat operations. So we currently have 25 members that are certified to Swiftwater 1. We have 18 that are certified to Swiftwater 2. And we're continually working to train them to higher levels. So we also have a couple of different equipment that we got. So we have waders for all of our engines. So when they go into these floodwaters or they go for a rescue, we can't wear our structural firefighter PPE because it'll contaminate it and mess it up. Obviously very expensive. So we have to come up with something else. Waders are a quick fix to that, as well as life vests. We have inflatable boats that we use as well. Sometimes we need more access during like big events. So we have these inflatable boats that we can put out and get down to people who the vehicles may not be able to reach. And we also have pumps that we can put on the back of these high water vehicles. So we get an area where can't get one of our engines or a ladder truck down there, we can send that down with the pump. We can actually use the flood water to pump for fires. All of our engineers and assistant engineers receive special training on how to drive the high water vehicle. Obviously, it sits a lot higher. Visibility is a little bit different. So they're trained on this. So staffing, these are not staffed all the time. We have 2 that are located in stations that we cross staff. So if we have an event that the pop-up rain event that comes, what we'll do is we'll take the crew from engine 14, switch them over to the high water vehicle, and then we'll respond to that to assist. Now, if we have a planned event, such as a hurricane or something like that, we can staff them with overtime so we can keep our regular engines and ladders in service, and then add them on top. So just give us some bigger confidence. Work that.
All right, hey everyone, I'm going to take you through the flooded vehicle incident data that we have collected. So after any incident, our crews must complete an incident form that documents the important information from that call. And prior to 2023, all flooded vehicle rescues were not specifically tracked. So to obtain how many incidents occurred between 2020 and 2022, we had to go ahead and create what's called a +1 code and create kind of our own code internally that tracked. As we can see to the chart to the right, prior to the end of 2022, we had 4 codes in which people went ahead and used for flooded vehicles. To be completely transparent, like Tracy had touched on, that's not really a great way to go ahead and collect our data. To go ahead and find all these flooded vehicle incidents, we had to go through and read all the incident narratives, and to be completely transparent, that was a lot of time and it's not very fun. So, like I said, we had went ahead and created what is called a +1 code. So as you can see in the picture to the top right, we have what is called a swiftwater rescue. And then that one at the end represents a code that we create internally so we can track specific things. So we went ahead and implemented the 3631 code, rescue from vehicle in flooded waters, as well as additional questions within our incident forms, including were any people rescued? If so, the number of people and where they were relocated to. So because we've been able to add those, we've been able to easily track how many flooded vehicle incidents we had. And so far this year, we have had 7 flooded vehicle incidents and 7 people have been rescued and transported. So when we go ahead and collect all this data, we're able to analyze it and see any patterns to it. So right now, I'm able to show you the number of incidents that occurred each year. And we can see that there was a gradual increase from 2020 to 2022. Now, obviously, 2023, we're still in that current year. And although it is much lower, we do have to remember that we're heading towards high tide. We're headed towards peak hurricane season. So we're not really sure what that's going to look like. But I did want to go ahead and add that there just so you. Another piece of information we were able to obtain from looking at this data is the number of incidents that occurred for each month. Through this, we can see that a lot of these incidents occurred in summer months, with the top months being June, September, July, and August. Just keep looking at all the data we were able to collect, such as the weekdays that obtained the most. Here we can see in the chart that Friday, Saturday, Thursday, just kind of your later weekdays, more incidents. Additionally, I do have the time of days that we received most flooded vehicle incidents, and with all the data combined, all the charts that I've shown you have been data from 2020 through 2023. Most of those incidents occurred between 7 and 8 p.m. But one thing I didn't share in the PowerPoint was the weather situations that were occurring, just because we haven't corresponded our 2023 data with what was going on. So this would be your high tide rain events. But what I can say from looking at the data is that most of these events occurred during high tide and rain. The second biggest cause of reason were during high tides with no rain, and then it fell into the third category of just rainfall events. Once again, that data will be shared, but I just wanted to go ahead and correlate all that data with GIS before we went ahead and added that. And once again, when you look at all this data and you're trying to come to patterns, trying to analyze it, someone might be able to say, well, hey, most of these incidents are occurring in the summer months, later in the days of the week, like weekends, in the afternoon. Maybe that's people coming in from out of the city, they're visitors, times. Other people might be able to make the assumption that summer families in Charleston are doing things with their kids, but at the end of the day, those are assumptions, they're not facts. What the fire department wanted to do was get specifics as to why these incidents are occurring. So what we did is we partnered up with other departments, such as the innovation office with the amazing Tracy McKee, and Jim Slade, who's not here, and we went ahead and created the flooded vehicle.
All right, so we wanted to try to gain a little more information on who we were picking up, who we were rescuing, why we were rescuing them. So collaborating with them, we came up with a flooded vehicle survey. So this survey is going to go on all of our engines and all of our high water vehicles. This will be the first next week. So it's an all survey that's been created for citizens who have had their vehicles flooded or were rescued. It's going to help us identify why these events are occurring. The survey can be taken through scanning a QR code found on different flyers. We'll have some flyers in each one of our apparatus, so if they pick someone up, they can have them scan it to get us some data. We'll also have those in the back of our high water vehicles, which transport. So those will be able to scan back there while they're taking a ride and hopefully give us some data. Obviously, we know it's not going to be 100%, but we're trying to get as much as we can throughout the process. So as you can see on the screen here, there's an example of the question. While driving, did you see or were you aware of any warnings that roads might be flooded in the area? And then there's a checkbox there, barricades, digital message board, floodgate, police alert, vehicle present, flood alerts. I did not see. So that's an example of one of the questions that we have on the survey. Again, these will be put out tomorrow, first of next week. So hopefully we don't have to use them, but if we do, we can gain more data from using these.
Right.
is one of those situations where it's like super excited to see some data coming out of that, but that means people got rescued. So it's kind of, you don't want to see that.
Numbers are down. This year, but
Yeah.
That's a good sign as well.
That's a great sign.
Mhm. Very good. You know, and you talking about, I'm gonna throw you a curveball. I wasn't planning on it, but talking about some of the training that you guys do. I know this was a while back, but we had talked about, or I think Jason Cruzen had mentioned some training that could be good for really kind of all of our field people. Remind me, is there something that's free that we should be, you know, get all of our all of our people that work in the field kind of just knowledgeable about situation awareness from?
Sure.
What-
So the Swiftwater training, the awareness level,
Mhm.
that's a free class that's online that everybody can take. We had everybody in the department take it, all the recruits take it when they come in, but anybody can take that. And it just, like I said, it gives you that awareness level and then what's going on with them in case you are in those areas during an event.
What's the time commitment for that training?
It's probably an hour.
Okay.
An hour and a half.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that might be something to consider, especially for all the folks that turn this.
I only got to connect.
I think so. Okay. Guys, you might want to turn the volume off. Hearing an echo is pretty weird. Hopefully.
Good.
They have it right there.
So, if you don't mind, a little discussion or.
Yeah.
So,
Hopefully they'll get our volume situated.
admittedly, the other evening I was, doing an interview with a reporter at high tide. And she remarked how quickly the water, even the tidal water, was coming up over Lockwood Boulevard. We were out there when the water started coming over the street. And, but I just got to question the terminology of swift, using the word swift. I normally associate it when you see flooding in you know, higher elevations and you get this sudden downpour and you get this really fast moving water. Maybe we see that during a hurricane or something, but I don't really think of our normal rescues as being swift water rescues. Just a matter of terminology. I wonder whether you just call it water rescues rather than swift water rescues, just to
Sure. The Swiftwater covers both.
we'll cover both.
Yes, sir. So it's they practice on the Swiftwater side and it's still it's for use for both.
So just something to think about. Tell me again about pumps you mentioned.
So we have portable pumps that we put in the back of the high water vehicles. And so you go into a flooded area where we may not be able to take one of our apparatus and you can actually use the pump to pump the water, flood water.
Okay.
With a portable pump and also
There's
sucks up the flood water.
diesel operated, electric, what you got there?
It's gas.
Yeah, yeah. How many of those do we have?
I believe we have one right now.
Okay, okay. And where do we station these vehicles? I presume in the,
So we have one high water station at number 9. The other 2 are stored at our trains.
Okay.
Transport one gas station for transport.
the inflatables you keep where the trucks are.
Stored up there, sir.
All right. So as you noted, the trend is already markedly down this year. And I would say maybe there's been a few lesser events so far by chance, but also it really makes a difference. I would say the collaboration, particularly with traffic transportation and police, in getting barricades out and preventing people from taking their chances driving through the water in the first place. And I do believe the media has, maybe they even over sensationalized that sometimes, but they have been doing a better job with their flood alerts and advising people, don't drive through water and all like that. So I like to think that overall our community awareness is better than it was even just a few years ago when you started tracking. Thank you, by the way, Jill, for going back and digging that data out. Glad we're tracking it well now. Again, as I mentioned before, it seems like our goal is to, put y'all out of the business, but, tracking it, being ready under circumstances is the right thing to do. So thank you for your efforts.
Yeah, good stuff. Been loving to see all of Jill's data and the analytics behind it. So it's good stuff. All right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes.
Was that right?
Yeah.
Not only national focus on the back and end for yourself, schedule out the perfect one. So there's a lot more collaboration. I like the first schedule, so another one that they.
Okay.
With that, I'll say that this morning I checked to see if we had any flooded vehicle incidents. Have your report that we did not. Usually I like to give the shifts 3 days just because of their shifts. They call that and finish the report. I think it's kind of stage to assume that once we didn't have any.
That's right.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Did y'all pick up the definition of blue moon? There's been some articles about it.
I think that's what's caused the whole.
Well, that's a king tide or a spring tide, but when it happens twice in 1 month, which is going to occur this month, is what created the expression that something that happens like once in a blue moon. This is August of this year is a blue moon month because we have 2 king tides in 1 month. How about that?
Well, let's hope it doesn't come with a lot of rain. Awesome. Anything else? Great. Well, good stuff. You guys keep up the good work. And I know that as we get surveys from people who do happen to get rescued, we're going to learn more about how we can put more preventative measures in place to prevent those from happening. So good stuff. All right. So now I'm going to turn it over to our TNT folks, and I hope you guys don't have this echo that I'm getting.
Hey, let me just say, when I was in high school and I was in a rock and roll band,
Okay, go ahead, guys.
Okay, so this is the TNT presentation. I'm James Wallace. I got Troy Mitchell here with me. Troy handles more of the electronics and signal aspects, and I kind of catch everything else from the operations end. Before we get into this, the three main goals that we have at TNT, in terms of flood status, protection of life and property, number one. Number two is to reduce the impacts of flooding on signal systems and traffic operations. And number three is to inform the public of flooded roadways and potential detour routes ahead of time, so that they're aware beforehand. So goal number one, protection of life and property, which is what we have up on the screen here. So a couple things that we have done and are doing satisfy this goal. Number one, probably noticed throughout the city, we have those 2 foot, 2.5 foot flood gauges installed at intersections and roadways. We got the help from our GIS folks to identify the locations to install those based on low-lying areas. And we have installed 31 of those gauges throughout the city. We completed that last year. So that's the first thing. Second thing we did earlier this spring, the aquarium staff came to us and said they had some signs they wanted to put up with QR codes on them. So if someone did see a flood event, they could take a photo, use the QR code on the sign with their phone, report the flooding, the kind of flooding, take photos, and it would be uploaded into a database. So we assisted the aquarium staff with the installation of those signs earlier this spring. 5 were installed, so 1 was in West Ashley at West Ashley Park. And then the other 4 were on the peninsula. 1 was at Brittle Bank, 1 was at Vine and Haygood, 1 was at Eugene King, and then the last one was at Smith and Morris.
Can I ask a question really quick?
Yeah.
The QR code that people are scanning, where does that take them?
I believe it takes them to a website that the aquarium, and I think it's a partnership with the city, so it should take them to some flood reporting website where they can enter information.
Okay, is that, Robert, is that your flood reporting tool that they're linking to?
No, I've never heard of it. So I'll investigate that. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we could go out there and see what pulls up and you know, take your phone out.
Yeah, I know the state has a website for documenting king tides, so it might be going to that, but yeah, I'll check.
And now the big mountain. On the first grant, you had 2 installations, but only 1. The system that allows when any flooding occurs, the sensor will pick it up and it will activate the signs. With that, it also has a web-based program that will send alerts to text via email, and we have gotten those claims. What we're trying to do is have vehicles and citizens avoid an area before they can get into a flood. We are currently working to grants for additional locations. And in those meetings, we have broken it into 2 phases, and we're working on the initial phase where we're looking at 4 locations. Continue with this project. We are also installing 1 sensor at this time, and that's going to be put at the US 17 and 61 split. We hopefully will have it done in the next 2 to 3 months. where we're able to citizens where any of this. All of that's being operated out of the traffic management center. So we can add people's names if need be, if they want to get these alerts. And be notified. We also along the 17, because it floods in those areas, President Robert G. Shepherd, we came up with a flood rush plan. What that does is, whenever we're notified by CPD of flooding in that area, we'll go ahead and implement that plan from the TNC. And what it does is minimize cross-street traffic, but most of the time along the cross towns, you can get people to that area. Since then, I've activated it maybe a handful of times, but that's where communication needs to come in play. We're looking at additional the MSIs. City. 5 locations. Conceptual designs, the type of equipment that would be looking at, and give us the information. They've been given the notice to proceed. That's going to take about 8 weeks for us to get all of those designs back, so we'll have something in hand. But 5 locations are 2 in the West Ashmere on 17, 1 on Follow Road, 1 on this street near the ARB exit, right? It's always going to be proactive.
Hey, Troy, can I ask a question? The new signs and sensors that can send out text alerts, have you guys worked with GIS to make sure that they're getting those? Because Robert's collecting such a broad scope of data that this could be another useful piece of data.
Robert is aware of the initial flood sensors that we put in. I'm not sure it's on GIS.
Okay.
But I do know that all of our signalized intersections. So.
Yeah. Well, I was just wondering about the text alerts that are coming from these new signs that you guys are getting ready to implement. It sounds like the one at you say Fishburne. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll make sure.
That'd be great.
Troy kind of touched on a lot of things already on this slide. For goal number 2, covered the signal plan, where there's flooding on the crosstown. Kind of close to traffic through and ensure that no one gets stuck. And we're also, as he's mentioned, reviewing all signals in flood prone areas to see if we can institute some other flood plans, do similar things. He has requested for additional staff for the TMC so that that individual can be aware of the flooding, send out the alerts, activate the signal plans, that kind of thing. And we're also looking at other ways to increase our actual traffic controller flood resilience. So that's mostly elevating the cabinets, either through a concrete pedestal or aluminum pedestal or pole mounting a cabinet. You can see some of the dates there for those ones. So this is the VMS that Troy was touching on. First thing that we do, and we already do this, is when we know flooding is coming, and you may have already seen this driving around, the emergency management team will ask us if we have any portable message signs available for deployment. We currently have 3 of those message signs and typically deploy them at the US 17 and Lockwood ramp, which is the photo you see there on the left. We'll also deploy them on the James Island connector coming into the peninsula once you get on the James Island connector. And the 3rd location is typically at Morrison, getting on and off the River Bridge. So we have requested 2 additional signs in the 2024 budget, just to ensure that we have those 3 locations available. We use those signs a lot on King Street for the parking detail, as well as when we're doing road work. So having additional inventory that will be beneficial. So Troy, like you said, he's studying locations to install permanent message boards, which you kind of see on the interstate a lot. Kind of have examples there on the right. It's funny messages that Utah DOT has put up. But those message boards, I think you're looking at putting them like along Savannah Highway and other arterial routes. And they would inform the public of current flooding, potential future flooding, detour routes, and all those messages could be dynamically displayed from the TMC. And we're looking for implementation of those boards by the end of 2028. He'll complete his study. I know he's working on it right now by the end of this year.
I know Daniel Flessis is very excited about message boards.
He's the one that calls us for the deployment of the portable signs.
Awesome.
You know the last slide. So some other long-term goals we're looking at, having more resilient infrastructure. And as you all know, I transitioned from the traffic operations manager to a project management role. And we're currently requesting funds for the first time in next year's budget for city-funded roadway projects. So these projects will have to meet all city stormwater requirements. They'll go through the TRC process. I'll be managing them, so we'll ensure that they're not only meeting the stormwater requirements now, but also future sea level rise requirements as well. And then Troy is always, and myself, we're always working with folks in the room, Dale Morris, emergency management, and trying to secure funds for any grants or other opportunities to install these identified projects. Anything else, Troy?
Good stuff. Yeah, questions.
Right, I think you mentioned somewhere in your remarks about better collaboration or input from other departments. Remind me of what you were looking for there.
because of TNC operation, and we want to expand more in using the TNC. Communication is between the CPD and ourselves, like even, it doesn't have to be flooding, it could be anything from accidents that are feeding traffic, where we can work along with them and, you know, work with the TNC to change traffic and how it operates. I found with visiting other TNCs that there is good communication between whether it's the fire department, whether it's CPD, stormwater, or any of the other departments within the city. Because
And I think like getting that position filled will be a critical role in improving that communication, right?
yes.
Yeah,
Can we make that an action item?
sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because, I mean, that's part of what this FloodStat effort is all about, right?
Absolutely.
So I'd be curious over time, given that we just opened up the Spring Fishburne Tunnel System. And now you've got your traffic management protocol in place, and the time the lights. Like on my tour the other night, went to President and Parkway, and then the next little street where Reverend Darby's church is, right off of Parkway. Is it Line Street or is it Bogart Street? On President Street, just north of the crosstown. And I recall going into Reverend Darby's church one time and parking there on a sunny day, and I came back out and I had to take my shoes and roll up my pants to get back in the car, because in an hour and a half I was in church. Well, it was AME, probably 2 hours I was in church.
Yeah.
You know, the water had come up through the drain outlet, and there was a foot and a half of water on the street, you know, in that short period of time as the tide had come in. And the other night, with a 7.7 tide, there was no water on the street, because, and the same is true of Cherry Street where Burger King used to be. At a 7.7 tide, you would have had a foot and a half of water on that street, right?
Yes.
And it was clear the other night. I mean, whatever they did is actually working. So, once again, I hope we make your new system obsolete. And it's still needed, and particularly at high tide, to get a big rain. I'm told the water can only still run out so fast by gravity that the pumps will help with that. But I don't know what kind of data we have on how many times the Septimus Clark was closed down due to rainfall. But it'll be curious over the next year or two to track how many times we even close down Septimus Clark compared to what we used to in the past.
Well,
With these signs, these road flooded when, there's one on Fishburne right now, it's a static sign, metal sign, road flooded when lit. The future sign, we're looking at making them blank out signs, so they'll be electronic, it'll just be a black screen, and they'll only display a message when there's flooding, so that way residents won't.
that's
Would those be
fantastic.
flexible enough that you could put other messages on them whenever you wanted to? In addition to the flooding message, just say if there was.
If you want to spend more money, a typical whiteout sign is just has the LEDs for one message, just lights up, just particular LEDs.
Something to think about.
Absolutely.
Technology, messaging, and all
Well, and I think that goes to, PMT figuring out what the right interventions are on a particular type of street, right? So if it's just like a neighborhood street, maybe that the low end blank out sign is the right intervention, but something that we might want to have more options for, you have a fancier sign, so.
Still a football game today. Stay away.
Yeah. Exactly.
One thing we're talking about is not all, but somewhat regularly, but it's also one of our major parade routes. Flyers and stuff.
That's right. Flexibility is good with all messaging, so look into that. It's
Yeah.
an investment we're making. We should think about that.
I just want to thank TNT, who's been working this for a while, but they really picked up and ran with not only the diversion, the notifications and stuff like that, but adding in detour options there, so we don't have barricades right now. There's where they're kind of get everything out, so they're looking at some options. Maybe put it on. The only point of reference is the Blue Ridge Park, almost the swing arms that come out for snow, and having something similar to that that's a little more aesthetically pleasing, especially these ones that close on a fairly regular basis. Like 61, 17 square and that big Fishburg, because even with all the technology that's there, we still have school bus drivers driving through it. So, so it's one of the sustainable options and having to pull barricades out that aren't unsightly, as stable as. I think in phase one, probably one of the gates there for arms and how it operates. Again, when the sensor starts on flooding, they'll turn the sign on, but will also activate the machine without anybody having to go out.
Wow. So where would that be?
The 1760.
Yeah.
Yeah, so but they're all bridge, but they're all depending on the floods in that area.
Right.
And due to high tide, that all come down, so but they're waiting for that.
But when you get that priced out, send it to me. I want to request SCDOT to pay for that. No, seriously, that's their road. And I haven't gotten a response yet, and this will be 10, 20 years from now, probably. But I've requested that SCDOT elevate that ramp. Because as sea level continues to rise, it's just gonna be a continual thing on that 61 ramp coming off the bridge. It's gonna need to be closed all the time unless it gets elevated, a bridge. But I'd certainly ask them to pay for it. I don't know if they will or not, but they should.
Never heard of that.
Haven't heard about
Yeah.
that.
All right, any other questions? Great job today, everyone. That was very fantastic.
I have,
And thanks to everyone for your patience with the technology today. They
Tracy,
installed new boards in here, and so obviously still need some tweaking on how we get it functioning flawlessly. So thanks, everybody, and we'll see you guys in October. Oh, hold on. Yes, October we'll have sustainability and housing.
Okay.
So thanks, everyone, and hope everyone has a really great day.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Jill, Paul, Thor, James.